goes to Smith. Jabari for three and the win. Yeah! He got it!
We are here to Field Rockets News. This is the Rockets Field Podcast. Of course, I'm your co-host, Lachard Binkley. You can always find me over at Twitter at Binkley Hoops, or my written work over at SB Nation or The Dream Shake. And before we get into it, as you saw that big play from amenthompson and the Rockets overtime win last night, I want to let my co-host give him a chance to introduce himself.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Vator. You can find me at Vator Sports on Twitter and also on IG for your Rockets-related news and a little bit of text and stuff. Speaking of that play, man, that amenthompson play was insane. That's probably one of my top three plays of the game yesterday because, like, we knew that Amen was a difference maker. Not with shooting yet, not just yet with that, but like as far as like his defensive impact at the end of the game yesterday, and then his passing, obviously. But like for him to come over and help out, help Aaron Holiday out right there and block Colin Sexton, who was pretty hot yesterday, right? And he was cooking us all fourth quarter and overtime. So for him to come over and make that play, man, that was huge. And I think Amenthompson's insertion into the lineup in overtime actually helped us seal that win.
Yeah, and actually I want to talk a little bit more about that play a little bit later because I asked Amen about that and, how he saw that play from his point of view. And, he gave a really good answer on that. But before we get too far into it, I definitely want to say we want to announce that we are now part of the Believe Network, the podcast network that has a lot of great podcasts on the NFL side. They have a lot of podcasts on the basketball side. So we're definitely happy to be joining that network. And that lets us know that we are doing something right, that we are growing the podcast. So we definitely want to give a shout out to the Believe Network. And we are definitely happy that this is our first official podcast on that network. And we're hoping for a lot of great things to come. So we definitely want to let everybody know about that big announcement and definitely keep your eye out for some more great things we're going to be doing with them in the future. So like you were saying, with that huge block, that was definitely the play of the game last night. The Rockets were able to pull out the overtime win. Their first overtime win of the season, 127 to 126 over surprisingly really good Utah Jazz team. I don't think a lot of people thought coming into the year that Utah will be fighting for a playoff spot. But right now, the Utah Jazz are actually still ahead of the Rockets, barely by percentage points, but after the Rockets had that win last night. But the Utah Jazz are really fighting for one of the last play-in spots, just like the Houston Rockets. So that was a really big win last night. It was the first overtime win of the year for the Rockets, coming off that 1-5 road trip where the Rockets were like the worst shooting team in the NBA during that span. They didn't shoot much better last night, around 33% from three, but they did come up with the big plays down the stretch. That Amenthompson play was one of them. And, of course, I can't go too far without talking about Alperen Sengun, who just took over late in that game, who had the huge and one to tie the game up when the Rockets were down three with around a minute and a half left in the game. He had tied his career high in points with 37. He had the second most minutes he's played in his career with 42, which actually had his career high in November a few months ago. So you can definitely tell that this is a different Sengun in a lot of different ways. Last couple seasons, we all know the back and forth with why he wasn't playing minutes. Some of it was the coaching staff. Some was that Sengun was still trying to get to the point where he can play major minutes. And now he's playing these major minutes, and it's not seem to be affecting him at all. He had a huge game, and something I mentioned like earlier, like if they're not going to double team Sengun and they're going to try to play him one-on-one, he's going to have a monster game, and that's exactly what happened last night. He had those huge 37 points. He had the double-double, the huge and one play, and made the free throw, because I know he was struggling with the free throws throughout the game, but he did make that free throw. So he had a huge game. Don't want to forget about Jabari Smith, because a lot of times we forget that Jabari Smith is having a breakout season himself. He may not always have the huge number when it comes to scoring, but he's always crashing the board. He's always playing hard. He's always doing other things besides just scoring. And right now, if he's not the second option, he's definitely a really close third option when it comes on the offensive end. Because when you have somebody has over a 7-foot wingspan that can shoot the mid-range shot, he's definitely should be one of your go-to option, and he definitely was last night. He had a huge double-double as well. So it's just a really good win overall against a really tough team because now for the second straight time this year, the Rockets have to play the Boston Celtics on a back-to-back night. So we know it's going to be a tough game tonight. So what did you think of the game last night? What did you think of Alperen Sengun performance? And of course, we also have to talk about the rookies. Cam Whitmore played major minutes, played his most important minutes of the year. He actually was playing ahead of Jalen in the fourth quarter and in overtime. And of course, Amenthompson, like you talked about earlier with that huge block. So what was kind of your thoughts overall on the game?
Well, shout out to the NBA for giving us a scheduled loss potentially tonight. You get the best team in the NBA on a back-to-back on the night after you had to go into overtime. Just kind of sucks, but I think they'll be up for the challenge. I'm not expecting a victory, but I'm hoping that they at least be scrappy and take the game into the fourth quarter and then give yourself an opportunity to win. As far as the game against Utah, I think a lot of people don't realize Utah is a good team. I think they came in. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they were 8-2 in their previous 10 matchups coming into the game last night. So they have been, and like you said, they're ahead of us in the standings. It's not like we were playing a bad team last night. I think people look at their roster because they don't have a superstar on the team and just think, oh, that's an easy win, and it's not. Lauri Markkanen is a good player. Walker Kessler is probably one of the best rim protectors in the NBA. And then, they're scrappy. Colin Sexton can drop 30, 40 points on you on any given night. They have other guys that can come off the bench and give you buckets. That's a good basketball team. And we had a pretty good lead on them, and we blew it. Some people after the game were a little upset that we didn't win by double figures, but that's basketball. If you've been watching basketball, for a long time, it's a game of runs. And at the end of the day, you just want to be the team that is 1 point better, when it goes to zeros. And like you said, Alperen Sengun, man, for a guy who his rookie season, we used to get the whole he can't play more than 30 minutes or whatever because of his conditioning. For him to go out yesterday and just put on a masterful performance, other than the free throws, obviously, he's our best player. I mean, and I don't think it's debatable any longer. If he's not on this team, if he's not on this roster, who knows what the record would be right now, because everything kind of flows through him. And he has been up to the task. And I know it could have gone either way, because I don't know how the previous coaching regime felt about him. I know they liked him, but I don't know if they felt like he could be this kind of player. And I think he got benched a lot. He got critiqued in the media a lot. Not saying it was unfair or fair, but a lot of guys maybe would have folded under those circumstances and maybe not become the player that he's become. So I want to give props to him for going through what he went through as far as being benched. Bruno Fernando starting over him. No disrespect to Bruno Fernando, but it's kind of crazy, right? When you think about it, and in retrospect, we were starting a fringe NBA player over Alperen Sengun.
Who hasn't played at all since being traded to I think he's still with Atlanta. I could be wrong.
Yeah, it's kind of wild when you consider that was actually a thing. We did that, right? And now to see him go out and drop 37 points, 14 rebounds, 6 assists, and he's doing it against, like I said, Walker Kessler is not a slouch. I don't know how many people are really familiar with him, but that guy at any given night can get you 10 plus blocks because that's how good he is. And Sengun has mastered being able to, at least on offense, he knows how to use his leverage. He gets lower. He puts his shoulder in the guys and moves them out the way, and he finishes. And I just love the way that he does that. And then, like you said, Jabari has kind of been an unsung hero for us this year. I think our draft last year was sneaky good, because when you look at what we got from him and what we're getting from Tyrese and when he's healthy, I hate the fact that dude dove into his leg earlier in the season after he stole the ball from him. That was kind of crazy. But we got two guys who are going to impact winning, and they can play in any system. But I'm super impressed with Sengun, super impressed with Jabari, and then I'm gonna stop right there, and we can circle back to the Cam Whitmore and the Amenthompson minutes.
Yeah, and actually, I want to play something because I asked Sengun about his career night, and knowing that now he is the go-to guy. He's the guy that the Rockets go to, you know, regardless of the score, and especially in close, tight games, and how he kind of felt about this. And Sengun gave a Sengun answer where he doesn't want to, you know, heap all the praise on himself. But it just kind of shows you that he's real humble when it comes to talking about himself, but he knows exactly what needs to be done. And so I kind of wanted to play that clip.
I mean, Fred fell out, so he was making all that shot for us. And then when he got to bench, so I didn't want to lose. I was saying I'm gonna win this game tonight, and I was trying hard, aggressive, good score, and just playing hard.
So you see, I mean, with him, it's all about winning. I don't think he really cares about the stats or how many points he puts up. And sometimes you can tell when other players like they really worried about their stats, or they're pulling up their box scores and they want to see. It's like Sengun is about like one thing, and that's winning, and that's also helping his teammates. That's the main thing with him, and I think that's something that's kind of resonate with all of his teammates. That's why all his teammates love him so much. It's not just some fake love that you do because they're on your team, but they really respect what he brings, and they really like playing with him because they know that not only he's going to score, but he's going to get the ball to the open man. And you can just kind of tell from those comments that he's really just about winning basketball games, and that's the main thing with him.
Yeah, I think you could say the same thing about Jabari. Even though we've seen games where he puts up a lot of points, and we've seen games where he just goes out there and he tries to lock up, one of the best players on the other team. We saw that when they played Chicago, and he had to get switched out onto DeMar DeRozan at the end of that game. Jabari has kind of this season been, I think, what we expected when we drafted him, as far as being a guy who's going to give you some high volume 3-point shooting, and a guy who is a good switchable defender on defense. And I don't think I think the sky's the limit for him. Obviously, he's still 20, and Sengun is still 21. And then you have you have Cam Whitmore is 19. You have I can go on. Amenthompson is still only 20 years old. He's another guy who I think is just about winning. You know what I mean? But like you said, circling back to Alperen Sengun, man, that guy. If he's going to be the face of our franchise, I think we have a good one, because, like you said, he's selfless. He's genuinely excited when other guys do well. I remember earlier in the season when Jalen Green kind of at that point in time kind of broke out of his slump. Who was one of the first people that was over there cheering him on? It was Alperen Sengun. Like, those guys have a good relationship, and he was like, he's back. He's he's gone again, but maybe he'll probably be back hopefully. But no, but Alperen Sengun seems like a really great teammate, man. And he seems super humble, and it's been a pleasure watching his basketball growth this season. I mean, he's a guy, sometimes he gets the ball and there's 2-3 guys on him. And when you hear the coaches talk about him in the post-game conferences or whatever, they always have nothing but respect and glowing things to say about him. I don't know if you caught the Joel Embiid interview, but Joel Embiid was like, it's a pleasure going up against a guy like Alperen Sengun. He's one of the best, players in the NBA, and I love when I go up against the best. So like even his peers are starting to recognize that he's an all-star. Hopefully he gets that nod this season. I think he deserves it.
Yeah, I did see that clip where Joel Embiid was talking about him, and when you have like great players constantly talking about how great a young player like Sengun is, you got to start really paying attention. Like Joel Embiid said it, Kevin Durant said it, Paul George has said it. I mean, it kind of goes on and on and on. All the people, and then you see opposing coaches, they like go out of their way to talk about how great Sengun is. So at some point, you got to realize, like, man, he is one of the best players in the league. Not just best young players, like one of the best players in the league. And even though he's probably not going to be a starter, well, he's not going to be a starter because, he's kind of behind on the fan vote. But reserves are decided by the coaches. And we've seen like every single opposing coach say great things about Sengun. And he's the main reason, why, they won the game. And we go into the game, we're game planning to stop Sengun. He has a really good chance of making the all-star team as a reserve just because of that reason. And it's kind of just amazing to think that when he was drafted a few years ago, yeah, people knew that he was a really good player. I mean, he was an MVP of a really tough a tough league, so it's not like it's a huge surprise. But to think that a few years later he will be the face of the franchise when you've had several high draft picks since then that the Rockets have had, I mean, it's pretty amazing, you know, kind of where he's gotten to, kind of where we thought that Jalen would be at this point. And we'll talk some about Jalen in the second segment coming up here soon. But it's just pretty amazing just to watch how he's taken off in this just a short amount of time.
Yeah, I think Stone's done pretty well on those middle round draft picks. When you look at Tari Eason at 17, I think Sengun at 16, Cam Whitmore at 20. Yeah, I mean those guys. I think those are guys that you can build around. Yeah, they have some things they can get better at. Even Sengun. This is the crazy thing. When you look at the fact that he is 21 years old, he probably is going to be a better shooter. He's probably going to get a lot stronger. He's pretty strong now, but like he still has some improvement, I feel, inside like his physique. He's going to get smarter. Like he's going to be better. He's 21 years old and he's doing all of these things already. Imagine, you know, burn injury, knock on wood. Like imagine what he's going to be doing when he's like 25 years old, 26 years old. He's going to be like it's going to be terrifying for the rest of the NBA most likely.
Yeah, like I said, it's going to be insane to see where he is in a few years when he's had even more time to study defenses and know exactly how they're going to be playing in these upcoming years. And one more thing, a couple of things I want to talk about before we wrap up this first segment. We kind of talk a little bit about the rookies. And we've seen, you know, since Cam came back from the G League, it's been a struggle for him to get on the court. It's something I've asked MA several times about his minutes and possibly get more minutes, but we're finally starting to see that. And yes, Tari Eason is still out, and that may affect his minutes going forward. But even with Dylan Brooks back, this is the first time that Cam Whitmore has played. He's played sometime into the fourth quarter, but never crunch time at the very end of the game. And he played all the way through the fourth quarter last night into crunch time and played into overtime. I think that goes a long way to where, you know, kind of what MA and the coaching staff is starting to think about Cam Whitmore is that they're really starting to trust him. And he actually played ahead of Jalen Green. And Jalen Green, the only reason Jalen Green came back into the game was because Fred had fouled out and he came in to play some of the point guard position. But Cam Whitmore, you know, he's really starting to make a name for himself. And I think it's pretty safe to say that he's never going back to the G League ever again in his career. So it was pretty amazing to watch him. Of course, like we talked about earlier, Amenthompson with that huge block at the end of the game. And also at the end of regulation, when the Jazz had a chance to win at the buzzer, he actually cut off, I don't remember if it was Sexton or Clarkson, but he cut them off at the baseline, which forced the pass back out. He played great defense at the end of regulation. So I had asked him actually about that play, the huge block that he had. And he said the reason why he knew it was coming because Sexton had tried that same thing on him where he tried to bulldoze him and run into him and push him off him to get an easy layup. And he knew that was the exact same thing that he was trying to do again to Aaron Holiday, and which actually he did because he had a wide open layup. And Amenthompson just came out of nowhere. And I think that's one of the things that he's going to really be able to do is be a really good to great weak side shot blocker. And we saw that last night with that huge block.
Yeah, I love Amen, man. I really want him to get more minutes. I know his shooting is not quite NBA ready yet, but we saw him affect the game in so many different ways with steals, forcing turnovers, block shots, rebounding, pushing the pace. Ime went to a like offensive and defensive switch with him and Jalen Green last night, and I know he kept Jalen on the floor for floor spacing purposes because you know you do still have to respect the fact that he could possibly knock down a 3-point shot or whatever, and that creates more spacing for guys like Alperen Sengun or whatever. But like when Amon was in the game, I just felt like he was yesterday at least he was more impactful. And I like I said earlier, I don't think we win that game if those Amenthompson minutes don't happen because he did so many little things and some of them showed up on the box score and some of them did not. And I'm just super high on him. I hope he can start carving out like even more minutes moving forward. And then as far as Cam Whitmore, there's no reason for that dude to go back to the G League. No. People kept telling me, and I would argue with people like all at the beginning of the season, because they kept telling me Cam's going down to the G League to become a better passer, become a better defensive player. And I'm like, yeah, Cam going down there and he's gonna like take all the shots and he's
Yeah,
gonna score 40 points.
That's not what he was doing down there. No.
I was like, yeah, they may send him down there, but like soon as he steps on the basketball court and he realizes he's the best player on the floor, like he's not gonna be passing that ball. And we saw that when he was down there. He was pretty much a cheat code. He was unfair. He was dropping 30, 40 points anytime he felt like it. And so to me, in my opinion, and I know part of the reason if you're not going to play, it's good to go down there and stay game ready, stay in shape or whatever. But I feel like his biggest learning is going to happen on the NBA floor because we know he can score. His biggest learning how to like make swing passes is going to happen on the NBA floor. And I think you know, some of those early returns showed that, yeah, he still needed a lot of work. There were some screenshots flying around Twitter where he was like bulldozing in on like 3 or 4 people and there were other people open. And I think, you know, that's fine because I know Udoka's a good coach. And you know what I think happened? They showed him the film. They're like, hey, man, I know you feel like you can score on 4 people, but, you know, there's 2 guys open. You know what I mean? And I think he still struggles with it, but I think he's gotten better to me. Like I see there are times where it looks like he wants to shoot it and he has those voices going on in his head. You can make this. And he's passed. And I think like, you know, 2 weeks ago, he probably still takes that shot. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, you know, I'm excited about Cam Whitmore. Like I said, this guy is 19 years old. I think he's one of the 6 youngest players in the NBA. And he's going out there and he's just giving dudes buckets. Like Walker Kessler, you remember that movie? I think it was the 4th quarter, where he was going to the basket and he put his shoulder in Walker Kessler and moved him and get the layup.
Yep.
I don't know. There ain't too many other guys on this roster who would have been able to do that. And so you're telling me we got a 19-year-old kid that is going out there and taking an elite shot blocker and basically putting him under the basket and finishing over him. Like I like what I'm seeing. And yeah, no reason to send that dude back to the G League at all.
Yeah, and real quick before we wrap up this first segment, this kind of goes to MA's coaching style and Cam's willingness to listen to what he's saying. So it was a play in the 3rd quarter, I think, where Cam missed an assignment on 3-pointer and he gave up a wide open corner 3. Now the Jazz missed a shot, but I mean, soon as he missed that assignment, I looked over because I was at the game. I looked over at the bench and I saw MA head jerk back and look at the bench, and that's when he brought, I think, Jalen back in the game. And then he was talking to Cam and he was coming to the bench. And it's not a bad thing. It's something that I think that the Rockets rookies and young guys were missing the last couple of years. Not to say that, you know, this ain't the Bass coach stylist, but
right.
It's a totally different thing when, number one, you're winning games. Players are more likely to listen to you. And number two, MA has that track record already. And as soon as that happened, he talked to him. And he didn't, like, you know, sulk or anything like that. It seemed like he took it all in stride. And guess what? Cam ended up finishing out the game. So he must have been receptive to what MA was saying, because we know that if you don't listen to what MA is saying or you don't do what MA is saying, then you're probably not playing in the 4th quarter. And this is going to lead right into our second segment where we're going to talk about Jalen Green and people not wanting Jalen Green to start and why is Jalen Green still playing and all this. But I just wanted to say that the young guys are really listening. And Ahmed mentioned it as well, that hey, MA is on us, and we gotta, you know, do certain things to be able to stay on the court. So that definitely goes to, you know, MA coaching style and why the Rockets went from where the Detroit Pistons are right now to actually fighting for a playoff spot. So I definitely want to talk a little bit more about MA's coaching style and the rotation, and talk about Jalen Green in the second segment. I also talk a little bit about tonight's game, where for the second straight time they're playing Boston on a second night of a back-to-back. So definitely make sure you stick around, and we'll be right back. And welcome back to the Rockets Fuel Podcast, now part of the Believe Network. And in the second segment, I definitely want to talk about kind of the elephant in the room, and that's Jalen Green. Yes, last night Jalen Green did struggle again from the field, as you know, he was not playing late in the 4th quarter until Fred VanVleet fouled out, and then like Vator has spoke about earlier, they kind of did an offense-defense thing, especially in overtime, where they would try to take him out of any dead ball on the defensive side and bring him back in on the offensive side. But Cam Whitmore did play ahead of Jalen Green for pretty much most of the 4th quarter and pretty much most of overtime. So the question kind of has been posed to me several times is, you know, Why is Jalen Green still starting? Why is MA still giving him minutes? And look, I understand Jalen Green is struggling. He has taken a step back this year. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say that everything is fine and he's going to be a superstar player. I don't know that at this point. I don't know what type of player Jalen Green is going to be at this point. But a couple of things I do want to say is Jalen Green is playing better defense this year. Yes, it may not stick out like, if he was putting up 40 points a game, but there are things he is doing better on the defensive end. He is a willing passer on the offensive end. He's not just jacking up shots every time he gets the ball. He is trying to be a better passer. He is trying to be a better connector on the offensive end. Yes, he is struggling big time when it comes to shooting. He is struggling big time when it comes to just scoring overall, and I think a lot of that has to do with him just not realizing that, hey, I'm faster than everybody else on the court. I can jump over everybody. I need to stop just overthinking everything. I just need to react. And I think that's a big reason why he's struggling on the court. And another thing that I pointed out before is that this is really the first time that he's in a structured offense. You got to think about it. When he played AAU ball, when he played with the G League, it was just hey, give him the ball, let him go up and down the court and let him make plays. And he was always better than everybody else, so he didn't have to develop his game. And yes, I understand that I understand that Alperen also was drafted at the same time as Jalen, and he is thriving under MA. But you got to realize that Alperen has been playing structured basketball since he was a kid. He played in a totally different league. He has a totally different offensive game, so his game was going to thrive regardless of who was the coach. But with Jalen, even in his first couple of seasons on the South, it was the same thing. A player that will remain nameless would just give him the ball, and they would kind of just go back and forth, and he would get whatever shots he wanted to get. But now it's a structured offense. And now when he makes mistakes on the offensive end or on the defensive end, he's held accountable. And it takes some time to get used to that. It takes time to get used to, hey, I'm not the main guy anymore. This is Alperen Sengun's team, and we all know this, just like Vator said earlier. Alperen Sengun is the best player on the team, and he's going to get the bulk of the shots, which he definitely should. He deserves to get that. So it takes time to get adjusted, and it takes longer for some players than others to get adjusted. And that's exactly what's happening with Jalen Green right now. And yes, Jalen Green is still starting, but to me, who starts really doesn't matter. It really comes down to who finishes the game. And we've seen that for the most part, if you're not playing well, whether it's even Sengun, whether it's Jabari, whether it's Jalen, if you're not playing well, then you're not going to finish the game. So to me, that's what matters the most to me is, hey, who's finishing the game? It's not really who's starting the game.
Yeah, and then as far as Jalen, I feel like he has to figure out, like you said, how to play within the structure of an offense. I think he benefited in some ways. I think it hurt his development as being a good basketball player. But, I mean, he was able to have the ball in his hands more, dribble around, kind of get in his rhythm, take as many shots as he wanted to take, miss as many shots as he needed to miss before he found his rhythm. And, like, now, we're trying to win basketball games. So, like, if he starts 0 for 4, it's a lot more glaring now. And then I think he starts pressing. And so I also feel like we're kind of not having this conversation if he was making shots, if he was able to just knock down the open three-pointer, if he was able to finish better at the rim. And I think these are things that are somewhat correctable. Ben Sullivan was lauded as a very good shooting coach. Hopefully, they can get together over the offseason and figure it out, or maybe even at some point, during the course of this season, maybe he can help him tweak something to where he just becomes a guy who can at least knock down the open shot, man. We're not even doing that. And this was his issue with Jabari last year. Remember, we were like, man, he's missing wide open shots. We had the same conversation about Jabari, and now it's Jalen. Jalen is missing wide open shots. And then when he does get to the basket, because he's a guy who gets any shot that he wants to get. Like, he gets where he wants to go on the floor. The talent is there, but the finishing is just is subpar right now. And, I'm hoping that he does his usual after the All-Star break thing where he kind of shakes out of it. We can't have this anymore, moving forward. He needs to string together, a more consistent season and not just be a second half player. But right now, I'll take it. Right now, if he can somehow figure something out over the second half, then, I don't know. But here's one thing too, his shot has been tweaked a lot. I think people have messed with his shot a lot. Like, we've seen guys, talking to him about like not jumping as high on his shot, and we saw John Lucas working with him a lot last year on like keeping his base a certain kind of way on the shot. Like they need to figure out what he's going to do, and he needs to stick with it, because shooting is one thing that is repetition driven. So like it has to be repeatable. And I think one of the biggest issues with Jalen Green right now is like his shots don't look the same. You might see him take a shot one way, and then he'll take the same exact shot a few minutes later, and it looks completely different. Like he needs to get to where his form is repeatable, and it's something that he's just continuously doing every single time. And so I think once we get there, I think we'll start seeing a lot more improvement with him as far as the scoring. And it's a little discouraging right now. I'm not completely out on Jalen. I know a lot of people in the fan base are, but I just think like if he can just start making shots, man, like we're not having this conversation, because as you already mentioned, he's gotten better defensively. Is he a defensive stalwart? No, but he's not a guy out there where you're always like, man, this dude is a complete liability. Get him off the floor. Yeah, he's probably never gonna make an all defensive team, but he's elite. Like if his offense was fine, his defense is actually fine. You know what I mean? He's not a ball stopper. He's shown that he can make passes to keep the offense rolling or whatever. And then like his rebounding, I think, has gotten noticeably better just because from effort alone. So like he's not a guy who I think you should throw away right now. And matter of fact, there's a lot of people talking about trading Jalen Green right now. Like, what are you going to trade him for? Like he's on a rookie contract. You're going to get pennies on the dollar for him right now. Like everybody knows that he's a depreciated asset right now. I don't want to talk about him like he's not a human being, but like if we're just talking about like from a trade perspective, he's a depreciated asset. And it's like, if you ever played the stock market or anything like that, it's like selling a stock when it's basically not worth anything. It's kind of better to hold on to it and hope that it goes back up. And I think that's where we are right now with Jalen Green. I think a lot of the stuff, like I said, I think a lot of the stuff that he's struggling with is fixable. And then if he can fix those things, like suddenly like the stock is back up. And, it makes no sense to trade him for like a bench dude right now. Like I don't get why people want to do that. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. I mean, people got to realize the Rockets are looking long term. They're looking at the fact that even next season, they can sign up for $12, $13 million. And what's the point of them trading somebody that's still, like you said, under a rookie deal that they have full control of, and that they're never going to get their full trade value back? So it doesn't make any sense. And I just hope people realize, like, look, it's fine to criticize players. That's what being in sports is all about, following sports, being a vast. You understand that. I don't think players have a problem when you criticize them. It's when you go overboard with the negativity, or you go overboard taking personal shots at them. To me, it's like, it's just crazy. Like you said, they're human beings. And on top of that, Jalen Green is 21 years old.
21. We forget how young he is.
People forget that all the time. These people are extremely young. Yes, maybe he never becomes an all-star level player, but my God, I mean, 2 or 3 years into their careers, and we already saying they're no good anymore, throw them away. To me, that's just insane. Anytime people start saying stuff like that, that's when the basketball discussion stops, because you're just talking nonsense. If you want to criticize him, say, hey, he's taking a step back this year, he definitely has to be better. His minutes needs to be cut. I understand that, because that's logical takes. But if you just start saying just nonsense like, oh, he's garbage and they just need to trade him for the 12th man on the bench just to get him off the team.
That's crazy.
Like, that's just crazy talk.
And if they do, like at the before the trade deadline, bring in a guy who's better than Jalen Green, then he should start over Jalen Green, and we can let Jalen Green come off the bench and be a 6th, 7th man, and maybe he figures it out. He's 21. It's too early to say that he's not an NBA player and all of these things that I'm hearing. But I think there's still a path for Jalen Green to at least be a guy who is a guy that is a serviceable part of a winning basketball team, who can come off the bench for you and get you 20 points on any given night and help you win. And so, like, if you have that on a good contract, like, why would you trade that? That I don't understand the logic in that. And so, like, that's one thing I push back on. I'm not pushing back on the fact that like you said, he is having a disappointing season. I expected, and I think everybody expected him to play better. But like just kind of throwing him away just to get him off the team just is kind of, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, we all know every year there's one player that everybody focuses on as the scapegoat of the team, man. Hey, this year it's Jalen Green. That's kind of where we are. And I know there's a lot of really good Rockets fans, and a lot of times the really good Rockets fans aren't as vocal as the people that are always negative. And I understand that's just how social media works. But like you said, sometimes you just have to take a step back and you have to be logical. It's a long NBA season. And then you can reevaluate things at the end of the season. But to say, you know, maybe what are we, like 40 games into the season, that it's third season that it's time to just get rid of him. It's not a logical take.
And Lachard, do you not even realize the fact, like I said, if they just fix the fact that he can't make wide open threes, like if they just fix that one thing, like we don't even have to talk about the finishing yet. If we just talk about him being able to knock down an open 3-pointer, he like suddenly he's fine. Like I'm not saying that he's not on the course to be a superstar, but we've seen like Aaron Holiday come in and be like a good player on the basketball court for us at times, just because he's capable of knocking down the open three, and he can't do half of the stuff that Jalen Green can do. So like if you add the fact, you know, that if you just add that back to his game, you know, with, like I said, with Ben Sullivan or whoever he gets with, suddenly, like, I think the conversation shifts. So like if you just think his jump shot is just completely broken and he's unsalvageable and you can't do anything with him, but like if you feel like that is something that they can fix, like like I said, just trading him for peanuts, and it just it's kind of, I don't want to say idiotic, but it just doesn't make sense from a basketball perspective.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, we'll see how the rest of the season play out when it comes to Jalen, but for right now, I think we're both on the same page that we're definitely still, willing to give him a chance and see if he can, kind of get back to, like you said, not even have to be a superstar level, but at least a level to where he's not hurting the team on the offensive end. Real quick before we wrap up the show, definitely wanted to kind of talk a little bit about tonight's game, because we all know that it's the second night of back-to-back. They're going against one of the best teams, if not the best team in the Eastern Conference, in the Boston Celtics. Let's just go ahead and get it out there. What's the chances you think they win this game tonight? Or do you think that the fact that they're at home, they play much better at home, they're 16-6 at home, one of the best home records in the league, do you give them any type of chance to be able to pull off a victory tonight? And what do you think it would take for them to actually get that victory? What do they need to do better?
I'm gonna give them a 20% chance, and maybe less than that. And the reason being is because I don't think Jabari is gonna play tonight. If he plays, I'll be very surprised. He was limping pretty badly. We don't have Tyrese, and it's a back-to-back. We just came out of overtime, so like I feel like the only way we're able to win this game is I think Sengun is gonna give you what Sengun is gonna give you, which is 25 and 12, something like that. We need Jalen Green tonight. Like it just got to be like a Jalen Green or a Cam Whitmore need to come in and give us 20 to 25 points. We need Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks to be efficient from three, and for us to lock up defensively. I think the real key is what are we going to be able to do defensively, missing Tari Eason and missing Jabari Smith. And that probably concerns me more than the offense. So like I think the chances to win are probably even less than 20%, but they're going to have to figure out how to lock up on defense, and we're going to need a big offensive game from either Cam or from Jalen. I think that's the only way we win this game.
So, and I'm kicking myself for not asking Jabari this, because he actually did talk to. He wasn't going to talk to the media because he was dealing with the ankle, but he actually did talk to the media right before we left last night, and he actually said that he was fine, that if it feels okay. Now, what does that mean the next day? Because we all know, we're not professional athletes, but we know when you had a twisted ankle that next day, that's when it really lets you know if you're going to be okay or not. And so as of right now, the Rockets didn't submit their injury report as of 10:30. That was the latest injury report that came out. So we don't know if Jabari's going to play or not. If I had to guess, just watching him walk back and forth during the interviews yesterday, he was limping a little bit, but then he seems to be walking okay. So we know young guys can bounce back really quickly. So it's a chance he may actually play today, but I guess we have to kind of wait and see on that. But at least as far as the injury report, Drew Holiday and Al Horford are both questionable. So maybe that gives the Rockets a little bit some help if both of those players are not playing tonight. That would definitely help out the Rockets in the long run. But yeah, it's going to be tough. The Rockets are going to have to shoot really well from the three-point range, probably some of the best shooting they've had in the last 7 to 8 games for them to have a chance. We know Boston is one of the best three-point shooting teams in the league. You can't go out there and shoot 20-30% again and expect to beat the Boston Celtics. The Rockets have to be able to make three-pointers tonight, and I think that's their best chance of staying in this game tonight is if they can go out there and shoot 40% from three-point range. So I'll give them a 30-40% chance tonight of winning this game, especially if Jabari is playing, if Drew Holiday and Al Horford are not playing, then that definitely raises those chances of the Rockets getting the win tonight. But that's going to wrap up.
And I think, hold on before you. And I think Boston's going to be really super motivated because like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown threw up a stinker the other night. Like they both played really bad. Yeah. So it's going to be a tough one.
Yeah. So that, and actually, I think if I'm not mistaken, the last time they played Boston, they had just came off of a game where, if I'm not mistaken, they got beat pretty badly, and they were motivated coming into that game again. So the Rockets are just catching Boston, it seems, at the worst time for 2 straight games. But we'll see how all that plays out tonight at the Toyota Center. And again, we want to let everybody know we appreciate all the support. We definitely appreciate Believe giving us a chance to join their network, and we're looking for a lot more great things to come with them. And, of course, I want to thank you, Vator, for jumping on the show again, as usual.
I appreciate you for having me on, man. Keep up the great work.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We're definitely looking forward to bringing y'all a lot more great content. And as we always say, if you're not subscribing, because we look at the numbers and we see a lot of you are not subscribing, but we appreciate you checking out the video anyways. But if you can hit that subscribe button, that helps us a lot. Helps us with the YouTube algorithm. Give us a like. And let us know, what do you think of Jalen Green? Do you think that he can turn it around? Do you think that he can, become the player the Rockets hope he can become, or at least become a player that can help the Rockets win games on the offensive end? And, of course, let us know what you think about Alperen Sengun, and if you think he's going to make the All-Stars team as a reserve. Let us know what you think about that. And just overall, because we're almost at the midpoint of the season with the Rockets, what do you think of the first half of the season for the Rockets? Definitely leave it down in the comments. And as always, we appreciate all support. And make sure you check out the next episode of Rocket Fuel Podcast.